the DoxyChain Digital Masterclass in its first edition. My name is Raphael Schulz. I'm the co-founder of the project, and today we are discussing the post-pandemic digital applications of the future together with three experts from the scene. And we have two experts from Poland, from Warsaw, and we have one expert from Berlin. So from Berlin, I would like to say hello to Holger Schmidt from Strategy PricewaterhouseCoopers. Holger is responsible in Germany mainly for the blockchain space and the healthcare space. Hello, Holger.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm also happy to have with me then from the corporate Polish side, Marcin Zręda. He is Strategy Director for Legal and Corporate Markets at Wolters Kluwer, and he is also lecturer for innovative project management on the University of Krakow. So also happy to have you here.
Yeah, good morning. Dzień dobry.
And last but not least, we need a fresh startup scene from Poland, represented by Mateusz Mach. Mateusz Mach is a blockchain, AI and fintech expert, was already co-building and co-founding more than 15 startups and companies to increase sales and conversion and many, many magics to happen. So hello, Mateusz, lovely to have you here.
Hi, Rafael, glad to be here.
Good, so what we have seen is, I mean, most of us are right now sitting in their home offices, and we are all in the kind of lockdown generally across the world, in the States, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. So we still are in the deep second lockdown. So today we are going to discuss how your everyday business life with teamwork experience and so on changed. What is the status quo? What kind of new applications you have been starting to use last year? And what kind of applications will survive the new normal? Yeah, what will last also after the lockdown? Because I think that a lot of new values have arisen with new ways of working between us and also between our teams, our clients, and also our investors. So I would love to kick off basically the question to all of you, like what kind of application or software was coming into your new normal in your company background? Mateusz, you are involved in so many startup-ish projects. So can you give us maybe an example from your space?
Definitely. For example, Nextro, the venture house I started, it's still a small organization of 20 people. So even before COVID pandemic, we have implemented many remote work practices traditional businesses are working on to implement now. And going deeper into the precise tools name, these were apps which I think we all know about now, right? Either on the micro or macro level. So Slack, Zoom, Google Drive, Confluence, Jira, like this is all as a fully remote organization. These are the apps we are using even before. However, what I noticed is that the pandemic, at least for me, was a great time to reflect on other issues. Organizations which were using remote work model before might struggle with these days, and one of the biggest one I believe is very important is the social isolation in terms of our employees. And I just noticed that many people feel very lonely working from home, especially teenagers or students, fresh graduates, without colleagues and with all of the precautions and social distancing. And I believe companies such as Nextro or any other startup organizations should work on developing and investing more in creating the feel of belonging, the team identity, and helping employees, even with signing up or registering encouraging them for therapy sessions, which these days for IT industry are crucial, I believe.
Maybe I can add something from the huge company point of view, not only local in Poland, but Wolters Kluwer globally. I must admit that I did not expect that such company would so smoothly move to remote work. And nowadays we have 12 months during our remote work. And I think I have three, maybe more, but three main concerns about that time. First of all is that the lack of organic, the corridor knowledge, and it occurs to be very, very powerful tool, but not even listed before, because we have informal conversation over coffee in the elevator during lunch, and this is very hard to make it happen during remote calls. This is connected with the second one, that we have issues with the team's innovation spirit during these days, I think, and it will be a problem in the future also, because the spirit is always with the people in the same situation, in the same room, conference room, and if we cut all this informal speaking, it will be a problem, I think, the future in the innovation processes in the companies, especially in huge companies. And of course, as Mateusz mentioned, the influence of our psyche and separation from work from the private life during the remote work is very, I think, crucial. Later, I will also add something from the point of view of our customers. But now maybe Holger can add something.
I just wanted to add very fast that from the new applications Mateusz shared, for me also Jira was new, yeah. So we were doing a lot of Slack before, but then we used something like for more deeper communication on a tech level. Yeah, so this was coming definitely for me on the desk. And yeah, if you have something from the commercial side, Marcin, please share. I mean, it's open.
One remark, maybe you'll see that the results, but the fastest growing, I think, remote tool is Miro last year. The knowledge sharing tool and mind mapping, canvases, etc. is, I think, the fastest growing company last year in area of the project management, knowledge management. It's great application. And about the customers, I think that it's very crucial to our customers, because we are operating in the area of the professionals. Professionals like lawyers, tax accountants, and apart from that, I said before, the next step, we see that we have the next step of digitalization of the consulting. Lawyers, accountants, but also, of course, doctors. Suddenly, in the mass form, experienced contact with the clients in the new form, and of course, we have delicate question that if in the times of artificial intelligence, whether such digital consulting can be dehumanized much easier in the future. So this is very powerful question, and the future of work also appears as a main topic in the next couple of years, I think.
Maybe to add a little bit of perspective from my side, actually I have the benefit of seeing there are several parameters. The first one, probably the parameter of the consulting team. and the broader one, the perimeter of all our clients and how they interact in consulting projects, and beyond that, how they interact with their clients. And I think in all of these parameters, there has been quite some fundamental change. When I start with how we interact as consultants, we used to travel a lot. It was all about in-person meetings, and it was all about seeing clients and being there on site. Actually, my experience over the last year was I haven't had a single flight in an entire year. And this was actually
so new to you, huh? In your life.
Yes, which frees up so much time and resources, which I really appreciate. And the solutions that we are internally using basically follow three major categories. It's largely about, of course, video conferencing. It's about all kinds of collaboration tools, and as large parts of our work is interacting with clients also in workshop-like settings, in coaching-like settings, using virtual whiteboard tools. Mural was one that was mentioned, and there's several others. For me, this whole situation in the end is feeling quite natural. And I think the experience that many of these tools can provide is a very strong one. But I think what's even more interesting is to see how our clients are dealing with the situation. And I'm working mainly for large pharmaceutical clients. And for them, there are two major challenges. On the one hand side, there is this challenge of continuing to interact in the research and development space. It's a lot about innovation. It's a lot about international collaboration. It's about conferences. It's about sharing scientific results. And on the other hand side, it's staying in contact with their clients, the healthcare professionals, physicians. And this is a very traditional and very old-fashioned domain where, for example, media like telefax are still widely in use. I think in both of these domains, there has been amazing level of progress over the year. When you take a look at how right now clinical trials are being done, the speed with that the vaccines have been developed is unheard in this industry. And everybody is looking at the best practices around the development to take that to the normal development process. Taking some of the tools, and some of the big tools pertain there, for example, to how to manage clinical trials. In the past, largely a paper and pencil process. Now, several platforms are emerging to do clinical trials with huge numbers of patients completely digital. Enormous level of innovation. When it comes to interaction with healthcare professionals, it's also a domain where I think a lot has substantially changed. The traditional paradigm of this industry still is share of voice. When I'm present at my customers more frequently, I will also sell a little bit more. And this still pays off to visit a physician some 10, 12 times a year in some markets and some indications. And also this has changed. It has changed towards broader platforms for pull communication triggered by the physicians. It has changed also to virtual interaction with healthcare professionals being truly appreciated. And many of that is coming with completely new level of content. It's not just this, hey, we have an amazing product and give me your next 5 scripts, but it's a lot about let's have a more in-depth discussion, which is far more targeted, which is far more addressing the healthcare professional need. And the technological innovation behind that is quite amazing and substantially extending beyond just the communication layer, but also pertaining to all kinds of structured content, glossaries, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Meet the Doctor was already a topic before the pandemic, what you just mentioned as an example. But now Meet the Doctor without like having the risk of infection now completely makes sense. Yeah. So this use case is just like in value for the people massively increasing. Even it's the same setup, even the need is the same as before the pandemic. Now people see a value in that meeting digitally the doctor, because even like he cannot infect me if he would be sick. Yeah. So I think this attention was completely missing in the beginning, and this gives now a new industry, completely new demand from the user perspective. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, this brings us a little bit to the second part of discussion, like what kind of unicorns are we seeing now from this pandemic arising? Each pandemic, or like any new critical situation, builds new industries. We know we have healthcare growing. We know we have Zoom video conference tools growing, but we have also the document space massively growing. So what kind of unicorns do you see now raising up in 21 after the lockdown?
I think, at least from my perspective, it's taking into account all of the changes. Even Holger named just before. It's kind of pointless to name precisely one unicorn per name, but it's worth looking at the industries which are changing. One of them is definitely healthcare, which you, Holger, know way more about than me. From a perspective of a person mainly involved in the startup ecosystem, what I can say is definitely all of the changes in how we consume media are fascinating for me, or how we get information. We spend more and more time in front of our laptops, just working from home, right? That's why our activities are also linked to that. So, for example, gaming is one of those activities which I believe before the pandemic was perceived rather as a leisure. Now it could be a part of our daily routine, just to get some break from work. Same with education and edtech sector. As the demand for different jobs changes, the need for education online arises. And I just graduated from college. It was New York University, and it was very interesting for me to observe how universities moved to online, and bringing all of their best classes to Zoom sessions. I believe, looking at those changes, there's so much to improve, so much to do to make those classes and how we consume knowledge on the internet way more engaging, encouraging for the students, and not only for the students, for anyone who wanna improve their skill sets. Definitely a lot of possibilities for new companies in this space. I'm very much into cybersecurity, so more work, more transactions online also leads to a greater need to improve our security systems.
Right.
Speaking about shopping, one last sector I believe is worth mentioning is e-commerce. I believe
Right.
each one of us spends so much time shopping online, and startups in this space, both on the level of delivering the platforms for making e-commerce possible and more smooth, but also introducing e-commerce stores are very much keen on the success here.
Mateusz, if I may interrupt you, but give me a juice, give me a cherry. If you would need to choose a unicorn, I mean, you're deep in the building of companies. Maybe you have your own, which you're striving to have a unicorn now. So what would you choose as from your perspective, as the hottest one for 21?
I very much enjoy the e-commerce sector, and there's so many different startups in this space. I was recently talking to my friend, and he's the owner of a traditional store selling streetwear items. And what's special about them is that they're selling luxury streetwear. And I asked him a question. Listen, so how was it for your store during the pandemic? And he told me that for luxury fashion, instead of the demand and his sales going down, it went up. And this trend is visible not only for micro owners like him, but also for bigger companies like StockX, which is the US company, or Soulbump, the British one. And if I had to name one unicorn, I believe has a chance to succeed in 2021, it could be Soulbump, which is a streetwear marketplace based in the UK, allowing people to trade mainly luxury streetwear with their platform.
Gentlemen, some more examples.
Okay, if you're asking for examples, I have maybe one area, but two examples. And later I will maybe tell something more about the area in corporate market, which I think will evolve in the future, and it's important for now. We all know the Zoom meeting, Teams, etc. This remote meeting for companies, for teams, but there's a huge movement in the virtual events platforms. They want to mimic the real one in the hotel conference rooms and hotel physics, drinks, virtual sitting rooms for meeting groups for sponsors, partners on the conference. And I think the Hopin is the one of these platforms, and Ermit is the second one. Huge growing companies nowadays, they are acquiring new and buying some smaller companies. So I think it will be a very good future for that kind of solution, because I think we are not change time back to normal conference and events, because they always be, I think, from now maybe half virtual and half physical. So this is my point of view. And the second one is, I think, I'm a big fan of what we can call knowledge management. But nowadays we have the situation that many of the processes in the companies is digitalized some way. But I think that they are not integrated, separate, and we are going to the situation that we can tell that our company, all of our company processes are digitalized, but we are not digitalized as company as a whole. And to sum up, I have that feeling that we have a lot of new perspective, new companies that they will be in the area of, we have digital knowledge management. So this is the, of course, today situation that we have knowledge management in companies is very important, but it will have a digital layer using the artificial intelligence analysis on large big data. So we will need to have that.
Marcin, sorry if I interrupt you, but this is very interesting. Yeah. But can you give us a concrete product example, or maybe startup example, who is exactly doing this?
For now, I can't see that because of course we can imagine that it will be area for maybe not the new companies, but the new area of doing work for the integrators, companies who integrate other solutions into one. And of course, we have the many AI-driven solutions that can analyze documents, analyze voice. And backing to my first remark about the corridor knowledge, lack of corridor knowledge in the companies nowadays, we need to have some tools that can extract that knowledge, informal knowledge from our meetings, online meetings, or from our emails, and analyze on the big data level, and then give us remarks about our company, our processes, our products in the better way.
Cool. Olga, you know that we are sitting in Berlin, and there are always, so we claim to be the city of unicorns here, huh? And as Mateusz said, like the old e-commerce space showed Rocket Internet and others. We have Zalando, we have HelloFresh, we have so many who are really making billions of turnover, and they are now even still growing, huh? Even in this lockdown. So yeah, what else do you see here from here?
Yeah, I would rather like to talk about some segments which I think are quite interesting, rather than to endorse a specific company or a specific investment proposal. I see from the pharma space, and I'm taking a look on that one, obviously from the perspective of my industry, largely three domains which are interesting. The first one is when it comes to how to bring innovation to the world. And this in the pharmaceutical industry is largely about doing clinical trials. And these are huge efforts. So we are talking about something like the typical COVID trials between 20 and 50,000 patients, other primary care trials ranging up to 150, 200,000 patients per trial. So an enormous amount of patients where data needs to be captured. And this has been done in the past in a very conservative way, largely paper and pencil based with audit track and all that. And on that background, there is a whole change in the industry right now emerging around virtualization of this whole process. It might entail also diagnostic components. It might entail business models on how to get to patients' homes instead of bringing patients to the trial centers. But it's a domain where there are numerous models are emerging, some of them being driven by the large so-called contract development organizations, others by true startups. And this whole domain, I think, is super interesting. And then I think the second big topic, which I think is super interesting in the post-COVID world, is the interaction of healthcare professionals with pharmaceutical companies. It's basically the discussion where products are being profiled, where products are being understood. And also this one is under very close regulatory constraints. So specific solutions are required to address all those. And finally, it's about any kind of telemedicine solution. Telemedicine solutions which facilitate actually that the patient does not have to get to the healthcare professional, but large parts of that can be conducted online. And there is a plethora of such solutions emerging. Key driver here is the liberalization of the legal frame that allows for certain indications, for certain scenarios, also the use to conduct medical services remote. And when you consider the huge share of simple primary care focused problems that people go when they go to the normal general practitioner, as opposed to the specialty indications, as opposed to the more complex things, it's obvious that this will be a huge domain going forward with a lot of potential.
Just a quick follow-up, Holger, to the first use case you mentioned. There's a lot of discussions in the blockchain space, which I'm fascinated about the aspect of storing healthcare data and how blockchain can help with that. So from your experience working with rather institutional clients, did you have any interactions, or did you hear anything interesting worth sharing about blockchain as a way to help optimize the storage of healthcare-related data?
Yeah, I think there are numerous use cases where this is being tried, be it in the core process, namely the provision of pharmaceutical products, be it in the supportive processes when it comes, for example, to manufacturing and supply chain, or be it when it comes to research and development. I think from my perspective, there are a few super big benefits of this technology, but on the other hand side, some industry-specific shortfalls. I will not talk too much about the benefits because I think they're quite well understood. I think from my perspective, there are three big questions which need to be answered in that context. One is the pharmaceutical industry in the end is not as democratic, participatory like the blockchain structures are. And that means setting up such a structure often is in conflict with existing structures. And these existing structures exist there for a reason. So stakeholder management and adoption is probably a prime topic to resolve. The second one is the kind of flexibility. You see that especially in the discussions around blockchain-based solutions when it comes to vaccinations. What we see right now is that the whole vaccination landscape is evolving at light speed. What 2 months ago seemed like the ultimate solution, namely get every patient 2 vaccinations and then we are all happy, turns into okay, you may want to have after the 2 vaccinations another vaccination, boostering for certain mutant variants of the virus. Or the immunity might expire after a third period of time and you need to revaccinate. And a challenge is, I think, to adopt, let's say, the flexibility of the evolving medical science in the architecture of such systems and set it up in a way that you very flexibly can adapt to changing protocols, to changing data types, to changing paths to immunity here in this specific example. And that is one that in some of the blockchain systems is probably a challenge. And the final one is user interface. From a clinical perspective, the convenient and fast to use user interface is one of the key considerations. And some countries have learned this the hard way when introducing electronic health infrastructure, like, for example, key cards. When you consider the very simple process, I want to prescribe something and then file the prescription in a pharmacy, within a paper and pencil-based process, this can work within seconds, signing the prescription, handing it over, handing it to the pharmacist, and getting from the shelf the product. When you consider this in a digital infrastructure, then you may want to be confronted with authentication of the patient, authentication of the healthcare physician, then in the pharmacy again, authentication of the patient, authentication of the pharmacist, check of whether the product is right, and the transaction times, even in completely blockchain unrelated infrastructures where you just need to enter manually, for example, a code and read a smart card, is already a major concern in these mass processes. And I think that's also a topic that from a blockchain perspective it needs specific consideration. So how to make it very useful. But having solved that,
right,
there is super big interest right now. Yeah, there is super big interest, especially in supply chain. There is super big interest specifically in those behind the scenes solution, which have a limited scope and huge value contribution.
Lots of interest, but seems that there's also lots of challenges for the whole industry. So hope in the next years, as an industry, we'll be able to overcome what you just said.
Yeah, I have something to add, because I need to emphasize the compliance management of such solutions, and also in the field of compliance with the law and regulations. And we have the fantastic field, I think, to optimize the work and make companies and processes compliance. And I have one great example. The Finnish startup Iconic Change. They have solution that stores compliance processes, compliance rules on the blockchain in the company, especially for bigger industries. And it's very great example using blockchain rules in the compliance area. We, of course, as a Wolters Kluwer in Poland, have a tools to ensure companies that they are comply with law regulations, and that solution can be connected with others. So we have APIs that can connect different systems in the based on the law. So that Iconic Change example is a very good idea, but also I think hard to understand for compliance officers in the bank how the blockchain and the rules and all this stuff is going on. So I think we need to have the talk louder what it is and
the poor compliance officers in the banks. I heard it so many times in their discussions. But you're right, Marcin. I think they are already doing a good job. They made their homeworks already, because I hear this argument since 4 years on conferences. And basically, like for example, in Singapore, banks already started, like have huge budgets in their legal law departments to check what's going on with blockchain, not only for digital asset classes, but also in terms of documents, of legal binding papers, of documents then also shared for the healthcare system. And gentlemen, it's everything set. I mean, I like always the topic of compliance and regulation. And as long as you're not a cryptocurrency, you can do your business very well. The European Union has clearly defined how we can work with supply chain or blockchain documents in a digital manner. There is a PSD2 regulation. There is a EEDS regulation. We have a durable medium paper. So the homework from the regulator side for the European Union perspective is already done. And us as entrepreneurs, now we can interpret that into a ready-to-go solution, into a pain-solving solution. So yeah, I think it's time just to build and to do it. What brings me a little bit to my last point of discussion for today, but a very, very hot one. Also, a lot of regulators were working on this in the last 3 years, and is how can I get funds? How can I find the right investor for my venture, for my idea, without meeting them? Yeah, there were no conferences, and there were only like digital panels and Zoom conferences. So what kind of tools I can create to get funds, rather with an investor or maybe with tokenization? What do you think?
Oh, this is a great question on so many different levels, Rafael.
Mm-hmm.
I remember myself when I was 17, I had to go through the 6 months or maybe even more of sending decks, business plans, one-pagers, to VCs in order to get my first round of funding. Back then it was $500,000 zloty, which is around $150K dollars. And it showed me, even the first experience in the space showed me how much there is still to improve in order to optimize the whole process for entrepreneurs. Because it's a fact, if you want to raise another round of funding, a person in your organization, or there just needs to be a person in your organization who's ready to devote himself or herself to the fundraising process full time. With the remote work and the shift to online, there are ways for founders, entrepreneurs to emphasize their team or product in a better, more encouraging way. Like, for example, video decks. Instead of sending a pitch deck, sending a video of yourself showing and presenting, or putting a greater emphasis on LinkedIn outreach. But the question is it a source or is it a solution to your question, which is how we can make the investment of fundraising process easier? For me, it's not. And again, I'm talking here from the perspective of a seed stage or a Series A level. I think that with the pace of innovation we are experiencing now, there is so many new ways of getting funding. For example, like the mentioned tokenization. At Nextstroke, we did almost 10 of them, raising more than $10 million for our clients. I also raised $5 million for the project I started back 3 years ago, and I see the real value of how, maybe not easy because it's still a very long and time-consuming process, but how the investment sphere changed. So with the tokenization, let's start with that. With tokenization, you have an access to a global pool of investors. Of course, depending on the jurisdiction you will choose for your startup. Estonia has moved forward very much since 3-4 years and created a framework for companies to tokenize their assets or their activities. And tokenization.
Mateusz, just to add to this thought that we are on the same line. So when you use the word tokenization, this is like a kind of crowdfunding tool. You are like offering your startup assets on your webpage, and then you're inviting basically everybody to join this, yeah, in smaller tickets. Like this is the idea of tokenization, right?
Yeah, it's still a new term, so it's good to explain that. Tokenization is bringing the operation of your company to online in the form of tokens, and this can be these can be utility tokens which represent operation on your platform. So let's imagine you have even music streaming platform, right? And you wanna introduce tokens instead of a fiat payment method. You can do that. However, if you want to tokenize real assets, like for example, real estate projects, you can do this by creating security tokens, which are like security papers, by the way. And it's called STO then, but it's still a form of tokenization. So you can tokenize both operations, transactions on your platform, and assets. Comparing tokenization with a crowdfunding is a great way on the simplest level to explain this, because basically, yes, it is selling or getting the support from the communities which believe in your product. However, as in crowdfunding, people support you in the form of fiat. Usually, here they buy not the products, but they buy tokens representing something in the products, which are the goal of the company.
Yeah. So tokenization as a I cannot meet my investor, but I can meet him on my webpage. So this could be like a pandemic fundraising tool. So, but it's true. We also have some couple of rounds and discussions. Not only DoxyChain, we in many other fundraising situations before and right now, even now. And it's still like that. In the seed stage, if you want to raise like the typical amount of plus minus 100K, indeed, the investors do not claim to meet you anymore. They like to see the Zoom call, they like to see the papers, they like to see the figures, and then they are ready to go into this digital risk. But we also saw rounds with bigger projects here in Berlin who were raising last year and closed also rounds with 15 million. And indeed, then the investors were taking the flight and taking the quarantine risk and were trying to meet the people in face, because this factor is still very, very important when it comes to higher tickets. So
just one thing, Rafael, because you just mentioned this larger round of 15 million, and this just made me think that What I'm saying by tokenization and what I'm saying by encouraging to look at tokenization as a great alternative to VC is that tokenization, yes, it is a great alternative to VC indeed. However, it works for very specific cases. It's not that, it's always like that, and it's always better to go for tokenization. Definitely not, because there's so much benefits of getting professional VC funding, the network the VC brings, the help, the experience of the managers of the fund. Definitely it's great for later stages. However, I'm proposing here an alternative for seed stage startups in the digital space, which have a precise idea of what they want to do and how they want to proceed with their product development, or maybe they even have some traction. So tokenization, yes, in that cases, it's a very good alternative.
Marcin, Holger, I hand this over to you. So we are a startup and we want to make a token raise. Are you, as a corporate venture, co-investing into this and you want to make a hybrid out of that? How does that sound?
Yeah, maybe just a little different perspective, because not maybe investor, but from personally, for me, person who for years are searching for solutions for companies. And nowadays we have such tool it's called Lex Hub, which is a platform that startups can be a partner of Wolters Kluwer and have access for the huge market for our current customers. And I think it is some kind of movement in this way that large companies can help startups to grow and to make maybe some trust for the investors, because we can together go to investor and say we have market, we have customers, we trust that company, that startup, we trust the solution, we can sell it directly to customers. And I think it is some kind of leverage from the startups without any of that kind of partners. You can, I think, get the investors around easily. And I think that the role of the partnerships between startups and companies, corporate companies, will be the future of a new way, maybe other way for searching for investors.
Maybe adding to that, I think the question implies a little bit under COVID circumstances, it might be more difficult to fund a startup, or it might be even more difficult to bring a startup to a success. I personally think there are some elements of this which are largely unchanged, and that is investing is always about trust. Investing is always about a personal connection, and
right.
I don't expect that this will fundamentally change. However, the means change, right? On the other hand side, the level of interconnectiveness and the level of access that you can have in that setting without making huge investments in traveling around the world is huge. And also the opportunity to interact at a quite early stage in partnerships is something I think quite interesting. We have a corporate incubation program where we actually maintain the entire process virtually, and it comes in the end down to the personal connection. And I think with all the tools, we have seen quite an advancement on that, which makes me far more confident than I was a year ago. And this goes even so far. I had quite recently a discussion with a client in a really interesting, quite long project. And after some 2 months, I was asking him, hey, why is the sun shining? Yeah, we were sitting here in deep Berlin winter and said, hey, did you know that I live in Hong Kong? Yeah, and enjoying the good weather here. So that's, I think, where we are at this point in time.
Trust, yeah. trust is a certain thing. I mean, we all are in a corporate world where we are like having other stakeholders, business partners, where we also give a lot of trust and reputation. I think this is like a thing which we all share. Doesn't matter if we are a startup or a corporate. In the end, businessmen need to trust, and I think that's a nice maybe close up from my side. I mean, we talked about today about what are the next applications for the time after the lockdown. We see that we have a lot of new tools in everyday business, from conferencing, but also from sharing of content, also in the document space, healthcare space, specifically meet your doctor in a digital way. But we also see that like the old values of people are still important, and that in the end of the day, we all need to show somehow face, and we all need to keep that what we do. So, gentlemen, I would love to say thank you for that round. And I think we had nice examples from all the spaces. Thanks to Mateusz, thanks to Marcin, thanks to Holger for the very first digital masterclass of DoxyChain. It was a very big honor to have you here on board. And I'm really, really looking forward for more of that kind of sessions with you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So take care, stay healthy, and stay digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.